a dream if it doesn't change the boundary of our world. A dream isn't a dream if it doesn't change the boundary of our world. Your, our world. Please dream with me this evening. This talk is for Bainbridge. It's never been given before. There's very little lyrical prose in here, interestingly enough. Lots of questions. Beautiful questions. They came from the dreaming. So please, reach to the stars, the sun and the moon, the force of love that is moving that, and dream with me tonight. Dream. I love life, and I believe in it. Every cell of my body believes in it. We rustle like bushes in which a great wind stirs, and we must let it happen to us. I love the hidden one, the unseen laws which ripen us in the wrestling. The unseen laws that ripen us in the wrestling. For those of you who know me, you know I have an irrepressible nostalgia for the unseen. So much so I find our ordinary everyday reality somewhat dull. There would be little sense in me approaching you this evening with this talk if each word, each sentence, each stanza were not preceded by this conviction. There is a Navajo prayer song that says, I walk in beauty. I walk in beauty. And for those of you who enjoy Jalaluddin Rumi's poetry and Coleman Bark as a translator of this great Sufi mystical 13th century poet, Coleman Barks once remarked about this comment, I walk in beauty, and he said that he felt that to be true. He just felt that I walk in beauty felt to be true. I too feel that to be true. We live within something like a presence, a beauty. Simply to be is an act of praise. To be, the verb, to be, in motion, enlivened, to be here, is itself an act of praise. We are part of what is moving us along. The force that moves the wind, the sun, the stars, the moon, is the same force here in this room, holding every one of our materiality of our body together now. Simply to be is an act of praise. I am not a big fan of the word God. I don't use it much. For me, it's fretted with doctrine, with dogma, and with a history of violence. I do, however, like the word God and what it points to. That I like. You know, that flow. The ocean of energy and intelligence that animates everything. The hidden one. The one that luxuriates, that burns, that transpires, that converses, that courses through all forms. Enlivening what is. enlivening what is as steam, as mist, as clouds, as blood, as ocean, as wine, as you, as me, as our universe, as our galaxy. Those infinite particles of intelligence spinning inside the 90% space of which our body is made. Indeed, we are a part of this beauty, this presence, this majesty, this grandeur that is carrying us along. You, who is nowhere to be found, hidden and completely obvious. Why is it we long for what is closer to us than our own voice? Why do we long for what is closer to us than our own voice? Yes, we can describe the mystery we inhabit, but how do we experience the full presence of the truth that the mystery inhabits us? Yes, we can sing our praises to a beloved. But how do we invoke the beloved's hidden rivers in the rhythm of our own blood? How is it that we awaken to the fact that every cell, the drumming brought every cell, that every cell in our body is immensely alive with this presence or beauty? Let's ask ourselves, how defended are we? We live in a culture that devalues the unseen, the invisible. We do not really know how to bring our attention here. We also live in a culture that is preoccupied with surface meaning, with form consciousness. Literalization, functionalism, pragmatism, technologicalism. These are the times we live in. They are just as precious and dear as any other time. This presence or beauty within which we live is still here. It's just that we are fixed on the visible. We're cut off from its root. And to some extent, we're dangerously living in lack of truth and depth. Our rationalized approach to reality leaves little room for the mysterious, the incalculable forces that are also a part of life. And maybe they are the absolute and the eternal of life. The invisible should not be confused with the non-present. The invisible is absolutely present, just as the unseen is absolutely part of the all. I know. As both idea and experience, the invisible resists literalization. That's a tough call in a world where public discussion is insistently literal. A notion like everywhereness does not make for easy visibility. Yet, there are countless ways to discover the depth and the hiddenness of life. The hiddenness that coexists with the self-evident and material. of knowledge, not guilty of that, and our need to make meaning, I'm over that, will not be adequate currency. It's not challenging enough, it's not risky enough, and it bleeds the spirit of living right out of life. How can we bring a quality of awareness to how enlivened space is? To how every cell in the body is bathed and sipping the breath of this presence? How can we enter into a conversation or communion with the hidden one? The hidden one animating us. How can we do this with only a fidelity reserved for surface meaning? For me, I think to abandon the surface of things will require more than curiosity. It will require more than a longing or a seeking. It will require more than a need for depth. It may require a revolution in our consciousness. Or would that be evolution? It will require a ripening of consciousness, to be certain. Perhaps. Perhaps it will require a willing letting in, receptivity, letting in as well as a letting go. The ability to be in uncertainties and mysteries and doubt without reaching for fact or meaning, but to sit in those messy places. It may require a rare degree of intellectual openness and fluidity. Even an innocence of a kind. An innocence which gives curiosity and anticipation, the spaciousness it needs. It is likely to call for a willingness to be moved or even disrupted by that which is really messy. Not just informed or affirmed. To be touched. To be touched by the ungraspable and sit in the felt sense of that. When we are touched, it is an inner experience. It connects us to the hidden. And how is it in any outward exchange, whether it's this talk, it's the land underneath us that the Bodhi center resides on, or even an encounter with a friend? How is it that those exchanges become the means in which our inner vision shifts and we are deeply touched? How is it that we are touched at all? How will we shift our journey from identification with the individual self, that good old pronoun I, to an identification with our true nature, with our true identity, our limitless nature, connected with the divine intelligence that animates the world? Just as there exists a point on the tongue that perceives taste, simply to be is an act of praise. Just as there exists a point on the tongue that perceives taste and a point of light within the eye that can see, is there not also a point in which the presence that is holding our materiality together right now in every one of us in this room
can enter our inner consciousness and touch us. Touch us. How defended are we? And in order to discern the grandeur of this, we must in some way partake of it. Lay down our cap and our cloak and start talking and listening from the majesty itself. Let's leave thinking to the one who gave intelligence. The eye that sees into eternity, may we let that in. Let's listen with a quiet composition of our bones. Listen. The wind is pouring wine. Let's drink in the evening with our breathing and measure this wind in stanzas. Shh. Everything is still asleep now. Even the motion of which we are made is asleep. Still, still. As a delicate wind dances unseen on an inlaid sea, light, feather light. Thus sleep dances on us. Our eyes, it does not close. Our soul, it leaves awake. Very light is this hidden one, feather light. Still. Still. There is a moment when the hours stop passing. One feels their tread no more. And they mount some sort of presence which carries them. They keep so still. And only beneath them is there a presence, a beauty that moves, passes, and takes them with it. Drunk with sleep and strange, the hidden one looks at us. But its breath is warm. That we can feel. And we can also feel that it is dreaming. Silent friend of such closeness and great distance, we feel your breath and how it expands this room. Let yourself ring out among the rafters, hidden inside the wood. And among us, inside our skin. Shh. Listen. The wind is now speaking. She is drunk. Still, still. Imagine if all the tumult of your body were to quiet, along with your busy thoughts about your life, about the earth, the sea, the air. If the very world should stop, and the mind cease thinking about itself, go beyond itself, and be quite still. 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 Imagine if all things that are perishable grew still. For if you listen, they are saying, we do not make ourselves. We do not make ourselves. The one who is our sanctuary made us, who abides forever. Imagine then that they should say this and then fall silent, listening to the very voice of the hidden one who made them, rather than to the voice of the hidden one's creation. And then you too fall silent. And hear the voice of the eternal, not through the tongues of other humans, nor the voices of angels and spirit guides, nor the cloud's thunder, nor any symbol, but your own, very own body. The instrument through which the hidden one is awaiting to awaken from sleep, so that it can play its limitless melody of joy and eternal wisdom, which abides in all things. Can you rustle like a bush in which a great wind is stirring and let it happen? And imagine if that moment were to go on and on and on, leaving behind all other sights and sounds but this one vision. This one vision that ravishes and absorbs and fixes us in joy. Fixes us in joy. So that the rest of our lives were like that moment of illumination, which will leave us breathless. Shh. Shh. Everything is still asleep now. Even this motion of which we are made is asleep. The wind is done pouring wine. The wine vat is empty. Still, let's ask ourselves, how afraid are we of this genuine presence and beauty and the tenderness and vulnerability it arouses? The hidden, limitless dimensions it arouses. How eager are we to tame our feelings by distancing from them or making meaning around them, essentially cutting us off from the taproot of our sanctuary? How asleep are we? This immensity is within us. Coleman Barks has a line where he says, we move along earthy and pure soul. Pure soul. Pure soul is omnipresent. It's endlessly abundant. It can be everywhere at once. It's not just huge. It never stops. Soul. This immensity is within us. It's within our temple. It is sleeping. It is attached to a sort of expansion of being that our current way of life curbs and our cautions arrested. Nevertheless, it starts again when we are still. Indeed, this immensity is the movement of our motionless self. This line is for you, Holland. Right here. Right here. This immensity is the movement of our motionless self. It is underneath the movement of time, It is the generative bath from which we, the perishable ones, ripen. And from this place of coiled stillness, there is a profound forwarding. It's a generative bath. And we recognize and awaken inside the sanctuary of the hidden one. We walk in beauty. We live within something like a presence. Everything is a result of this beauty. A deep love bow to the hidden one. You, who is nowhere to be found, hidden and completely obvious. You who is our sanctuary. You who realizes yourself through our form. You who goes by so many names and yet will remain nameless. You who are we and so much more than we. A love bow to the hidden one. A love bow to the Bodhi Center. And a love bow to all of you. Oh.